Thank you for this talk. My name is Jeanette Lenoir, and
I didn't hear you. What is your name?
Jeanette Lenoir.
Okay.
I'm a journalist, and I saw, Sankofa comes through my email sometimes, and sometimes I'll show up and take part. But what brought me here was the word Maroon, because I am a Maroon. I'm from Suriname.
Oh, wow.
I'm from I grew up being called a Maroon. These are my mother's eyes. As you see, my shirt says, "I am not your Maroon." And I'm always triggered by the word Maroon because of what it means. It derives from the word Cimarron, which when the Spaniards conquered the region I come from in northern South America, when their animals would run away, they called them Cimarrons. Later, during the slave trade, when they brought enslaved Africans there, the British named enslaved people Maroons. So the word derives from Cimarron to Maroons. And so I'm highly offended by that word because we know who we are. We do not call ourselves Maroons. So I thought it was very interesting that in America, a lot of the African American culture, they romanticize the word Maroon, which is fine. But as an actual person who's called a Maroon, we reject it because we do not call ourselves that. I'm a Pamaka person. In Suriname, my country, there are 5 other tribes that are there. There's Samaka, Matawai, Aluku, Unjuka, and I'm Pamaka. We speak different dialects. I speak my tribal language, but in academia and all over the world, people still refer to us as Maroons. But the word means runaway slave. And when I say I am not your Maroon, I'm saying I'm not your runaway slave, because I'm nobody's slave. I'm a freeman, and we've always been free. And that is what truly the word means, is a freeman, not your runaway slave. And so I rejected, but I came here and listened because I realized that what your father was doing was searching for freedom. He truly was the Maroon. He truly was fighting for what he knows is inherently his, which is God-given freedom, and I applaud that. But language is important, and I think it's very important that to know thyself is to reject the labeling that those that have oppressed us have given us, and that's part of the education. And so when I say I'm not your Maroon, I say I'm not your slave. The enslaver is the actual slave, because they need us to feel important,
You do, I'm certain you would agree that what you're defining as terminology in your experience is not terminology for all people.
Yeah, there's so many proud Maroons, like in
other words,
Jamaica.
enslaved Africans who escaped where you came from would have a particular view of the world and a particular view of identifying themselves. It is not necessarily how other people would define themselves, though.
Yes, I know that, and that's what I noted. But I'm actually I was born in Suriname. I was raised on a Maroon village. I'm from Langatabacha. My grandfather was chief of our islands. We're Pamaka people. And so I was born a so-called Maroon. And so we know what that word means, but we reject it, or we've always stood against it. But what we do embrace is our freedom and the fight for freedom. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate that your father never let that spirit die, because that's exactly what that means. That we are tribal Africans, not Maroons.
Thank you.
I would like to add to that,
so 2 things. One, my father was coming back to the prison kind of dejected because he had just been caught and is being returned, and knowing that there are a lot of prisoners and people just rooting for him not to be caught. So he's coming back, he's caught, and he's kind of a little dejected or what have you. And someone says to him, they were chasing you like a Maroon. And he was like, well, what is that? He had no understanding of what that was, and then went on a historical journey, just doing the history of Maroons. And one of the things with my father too was they had these, for lack of better terms, study courses in solitary confinement. So if you ended up in solitary confinement, you ended up forced taking these courses that my dad, would put out. And if you didn't take them, then, when the gates open, it'd be whatever. But also in those studies, my sister Sharon, me, my sister Teresa, whoever would come, my dad would make you not just purchase his library. You wouldn't just have to buy books for him, but then you had to study them with him, and then he would quiz you, on the books that you had to buy for him. And one of the subjects, obviously Maroons, I've studied in an insane way, and know that it was a global culture, and that also there were European slaves that they use this same term with. They use this term also in Brazil. They use this term in Palmares. They use this term globally. And one of the people who I would love to introduce to this audience, and some of you may know or may not know, but he is one of the greatest slave liberators or Maroon liberators or converters into runaways, is a person named Bartholomew Roberts, or Black Bart. And so Black Bart was the king of the Golden Age pirates. And you try to look him up, I tell you, go and do the research. It's there to be found if you really want to look for it. But basically, he was a navigator, an African navigator on a ship that got mutinied, and they killed the captain and made this guy the captain. He went around, for lack of better terms, attacking the British and Portuguese slave ships and taking the slaves off of the ship, putting them on his ship, and then going around and finding the next ship to rob and plunder. But you must understand, in this research, in this study, in this Black Bart being the greatest pirate of all times, and how they steal your stuff. When you watching Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp with dreads, just trying to figure out who that is. And why they spending all this money, time, and effort telling you a story about a white boy with dreads. And why you ain't even ask yourself, why the white boy got dreads? And why is piracy, and we talking about democratic and social economies and economic, why is piracy not studied? Why do you not support your brothers in Somalia when they come across that water and they make a movie, oh, the Somalians, blah, blah. Why you not politically educated to know and support and to spin the story back the way it's supposed to be? Because the water, maritime law, is all free. You get out there, it's whatever out there. That's why piracy is what it is. When you get out there, it's whatever. Anything, I could bury you, and then it's whatever. Whatever happened out here stays out here in the sea. And if I throw you over here right now, that's it. That's the law. That is the law.
Which means everyone can take your brand and sip it, work in it.
That is the law. And so you talk about 10-point programs. Black Bart had the first 10-point program. You talk about the Western Duel and all that stuff. That comes from a black person, Black Bart. You can't sit on this ship. You can't drink on this ship. I got an African orchestra on this ship that plays us into battle with djembes. And that's why one ship is able to take over 27 ships. Look it up. Why don't they tell you about this? Why don't we know? Why is he celebrated? Why isn't Black Bart celebrated? Why don't we know that one of the richest men outside of Mansa Musa is Black Bart? a slave liberator. All right, I'm going on.
We're gonna wind down. Just want to make sure, are there any other questions? Well, we can go back.
Yeah, let's talk. All right,
Hello.
I'm done. Y'all can get it.
No, it's just good. My name is Tracy Wyatt. Hi. So, this was very intriguing. I was born and raised here in Washington, D.C. I was born in 1972. D.C. to me back then was just so black. The only white people I would see is the insurance man who would come around occasionally. And when my mom took me to a job at the post office in Silver Spring, her co-workers, okay? That was the only time I really saw white people. Matter of fact, it wasn't until I worked at the Department of Justice that I experienced racism. And that was when I was in high school in the co-op program. But nonetheless, I was able to relate to so many of the things that you were saying from, the neighborhood stuff with the kids and how, doing anything to get a day out of school. What? They were at your P's house. Get out here. Can they come back again? Is that going to get us out of school again? So those little funny things as kids is just so typical of us in our communities. But then when you spoke about the single family home and what that was like in the struggle, when you're talking about domestic abuse and what that's like and how you try to grapple with those things. But after studying Steve Biko and other revolutionaries, both males and females, it's fascinating on one end, right? Because you're seeing all these heroic things and we like, yeah, we're rooting them on and we want them to win. We want to see them because it's like, yeah, they're getting over on the system. They getting, they're being liberated. They're helping to liberate us. But then you see that other side, that personal side, that lived experience, the struggles that they have as a person, them dealing with the mental, the emotional, and spiritual of being incarcerated, overcoming their own personal demons, trying to be this better person, admitting when they're wrong and saying, okay, I've been here, I know I'm wrong, I messed up. How can I move forward with this? We can't change yesterday, but we can change our tomorrow, today and tomorrow. So all of those things, I was just like, I was feeling all of it. I was like, kind of like moving in my seat. It felt like I was in a movie. And the ups and downs that you were talking about on this, I was like, oh my God, this stuff is good. It gets juicy, right? Because it feels like Asada Shakur's book, And I'm like, yeah, it's got to be up and down. And that's how I felt here, experiencing all that. So I want to thank you, one, for being so real and raw, sharing your story, that which is beyond the book, those letters that you have from your dad, still honoring your dad, even though there were issues, but being able to connect to that side of him that was community and that people loved and that grew into something so great and so beautiful that became a symbolism of freedom around the world is something amazing. Not everybody can point to that or point to him and say, that's my dad. But we can embrace him as part of our community and say, oh, that's our brother, and look at what he has done and the work he's done. So thank you for that. I'm very excited to be able to read the book and get into it, because like I said, it's juicy, and hearing about the games, I did want to bring that up. There were games everywhere here in D.C. Many of my family members were part of them, many of them incarcerated. I can't say they were political prisoners, but they, there may be some. And working on both sides of the fence in community. I think the last part I really wanted to focus on is, when you said, when they kind of had the state in the chokehold, when, everything was going on with George Floyd and, during COVID and all these things. And you were talking about throwing everything at the wall too, right? To see what would stick, what you can get. And I saw in that moment both and. If this one group can get the reforming or what have you of the police department and the people, okay, great. If you can get the political prisoners out, that group can do that, fine, go after that. Whatever everybody could go after, it's like everybody go after everything. Sometimes it's not just one thing, and that's what I loved about Steve Biko and studying him, because they they just took so many different roads to liberating people. And like you were saying here, mentally, that psychologically, you see things, same thing with Friend Fanon. They talk about that psychological liberation, and then it moves into the spiritual part as well, and liberating just all around, even to the Black aesthetics, right? To who we are, what we look like, and being liberated in that, understanding who God is and how God created us and loved us. So it's all those things. I was able to get all that from you all today in this conversation. So thank you for sharing, and I'm looking forward to reading about your dad, and thank you for sharing him with us. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm not sure I want to give her the mic.
I tried.
Well, we tried.
I want to close it now, but I want to say, maybe I want to take your time, my time, Sankofa's time together and sandwich it. Could you bring that stuff? Just bring it in. Yes, I want to be right here. Okay, in terms of squabbling about Maroon, etc., let's look at how our folks call themselves in different parts of this struggle. There's no monopoly. It's not something we can bottle and sell. It's something different. And I want to apologize before I speak to my sister here, my brother there. For you guys, he is your father. For us, he is also a symbol of something. And that you have to separate. When we sandwich the two, Malcolm X's family is one thing, Malcolm X is another thing.
Yes.
When we mix this up, we end up making more mistakes, more disastrous, let's say, or backwardness toward, backwardness, moving the struggle backward. In my view, when I was actually doing Sankofa, I studied more Suriname and Brazil than any country, but let me speak to this issue here. It's the prisoners who called them a Maroon. And you wonder why, even Maroon, as critically we can discuss it from the point of view my sister is coming from, which is discussable, not an absolute, but discussable for everybody because we don't know the circumstances. Because in Jamaica, there's Maroon Town, Maroon Cave, Maroon Hills, Maroonage, Finger. Yes, my sister. So, I'll get together with you because you might help me do better. But the issue that I'm trying to bring is Maroonage is an issue that Black people appropriated and gave it another meaning. That's what we have to know. Maroon is like Africa is not Africa. It's not African. It's a reference by Europeans who called Ethiopia Greek, black, burnt people, burnt faces. We call ourselves still Ethiopians. We call Africa, Africa. But it's not a name we made. But what we do is we take a name and then appropriate it to mean what we want it to mean. That is what I want to speak at. Because to me, I want to discuss Maroons, especially the film I'm making now. It's at the time I'm doing Sankofa. There was a news of your father escaping. And I paid attention to it, not when he first escaped, it's when prisoners called him Maroon. When in fact at Howard, where I was teaching 43 years, scholars didn't know what Maroon was even. And here prisoners knew what it was. In whatever we think that is, they knew more than scholars and teachers. And then, in fact, in Sankofa, the part I cut out because of the budget and because I couldn't afford it is the mountain, the hilltop, the hill people. Some people call them the hill people from Freedom Mountain. And so, for me, it was so connected. I was amazed how popular community knows this history and labeled him, you're a Maroon. That's powerful for us who are like looking at this labeling coming out of our community, especially prisoners. When I showed my film in the federal prison in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, the prisoners there analyzed my film more than any scholar to this day has ever done. I'm sorry to say that. I went there, these are prisoners analyzing my film. Brilliant black men and women, black men actually, there were not women there except the organizers were women. They were analyzing my film and beyond teaching me. And I said to myself, how can I leave to go to Howard, leaving these prisoners behind? These brilliant black men behind prison. That's how I felt. And I'm telling you, I'm a frustrated filmmaker because black people, the elite black people, the black intelligentsia, do not know how to analyze culture. They're so politically narrow, chiseled, they don't know how to talk about the cultural implication of analyzing a black cinema. The other day, somebody was talking about he's supposed to be a scholar, and his favorite film is Green Mile. And Green Mile basically is about a black man who goes around trying to cure white people, and they electrocuted his ass in the And I'm saying to myself, what is wrong with us? Why are we so? On one hand, you were so deep in analyzing the social race issue, but incapable of understanding the cultural analysis. Many intellectuals in our community do not know how to analyze culture. And because of that, our political struggle has gone backwards now, because we don't know how to culturally analyze the new game of cultural warfare is waged against our people. And so for me, I'm saying to you, my sister, to you, my brother, at a certain point, your father belongs to us. I'm sorry to say this blatantly. I told Paul Robeson's son, called me at Howard, we took his name to create a Paul Robeson Award in Africa at the Ouagadougou Film Festival. My wife and me organized it. The son called me and said, who gave you permission to use my father's name? I told him, he is our father, not only yours. Unless you want to bottle and sell him and capitalism in his name. So for me, this whole separation has to happen. We have to know Nat Turner has also children, wife. In fact, I wrote a script once where the pregnant woman, his wife, listening to him being tortured next door, because that's historically fact. And so for me, the human aspect is very important. It's an amazing struggle that you both went. At the same time, you have to relinquish your father to us, so we could also advance what he lived for. The Maroon in him, I'm interested. The Maroon in him. And it's not to neglect, your biological relationship. It's very important that I admire you, I'm proud of you. How many kids are now the children of the big people? They're in court. Martin Luther King's kids are in court, trying to divide one gift into 10 people or something. Some man was the filmmaker from Senegal, his kids are in court. I could give you more names. But you guys worked on this material, this book. And it's, I'm thankful, I'm proud. I came to hear you because of that. The other part of it is in the discussion. I just want us to be a little bit democratic, academic, and I'm glad to meet a sister from Suriname. By the way, when I showed my film in Holland to Surinamese black people, they inducted me into the tribe. So I'm actually your brother.
Which tribe? We're all very different.
No, excuse me. Let's talk later, sister, because I think you will retreat back to a cave if you go to an absolute idea that Maroon means my slave. No, it doesn't mean.
Yes,
That's
it
a
does,
fact.
and you're not being very honest right now.
Excuse me. You talk.
I know what the word means. I know. I've studied it. This is another great book that I would recommend you read. The word comes from the word Semanon you have.
Why do you even assume? Why do you assume I don't have that book? Why do you assume I don't have that book?
No, but
Why are you Columbus who discovered everything?
I'm somebody who's called a Maroon, and as my
No,
living
you're
history-
not. You're not.
From that
Only
country.
What's that
Why
Suriname?
would you deny my lived experience? That's
Listen,
outrageous.
What's his name? That Price. The Price family calls you Maroon. The Price family calls you Maroon.
No, the word
We knew
is
you.
stubborn,
We knew you
not
as the
British.
different communities, my sister. I was in Ghana with your family when they were meeting the Ghanaian family. So I'm saying, I
My
didn't,
family's from Benin and Togo.
excuse
We
me.
know who we are.
Okay,
I'm trying to
good.
tell you who we
Oh,
are, but you're saying,
other
well, this is
black
who I
people,
am.
the
That's my
problem is,
language. If Ugadawani means God willing. See the
Okay,
word? That's my language.
but let me tell you,
Speak it. I
let me
speak
tell you
it.
something,
I
my
write it.
sister. No, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not disagreeing with you with your facts. Let me
You're
say this
disagreeing
to
with
you.
you, it's all-
No, excuse me. But don't say you're a special nigger in the middle of Negros. That's bad language.
I'm asking
You're
you
not
to
special.
say the N-word.
You're not special. You're not special. What I'm trying to tell you is all black people made history out of their circumstances. That's what I said.
Thank you.
Okay.
What I
So
know
to me,
offends you.
excuse me.
I mean,
I
that's
listen.
outrageous.
Excuse me. What I want to say is
Because
this.
you benefit.
Different black people, that's why I brought this. In different communities, black runaways, black Maroons call themselves different names, and you have it here. And it's more than this even. It's just in the film I'm working now that is part of the breakdown. But the point I want to say is this, folks, please. What I want to say is this. I think, for example, Africans would say to you, how come you didn't do this during slavery? And the problem here is they did not know what was done in that circumstances. That ignorance has to always be corrected. As far as I'm concerned, black people, African people, everywhere where they found themselves in circumstances, including the pirate history you brought, the Gulf of the whole New Mexico, in that whole Gulf, that history is still to be discovered, and they were all doing their best in the circumstances they found themselves. That's what makes it a powerful history. Africans in the Americas built a resistance history. In fact, I would even go as far as better than modern Africans. Not traditional old Africans, the Angola, the Zimbabwean, and all the, the traditional fighters, peasants, etc. I'm talking about modern Africa. Doesn't even have a chapter that Africans in America, from Brazil to this Deva. The other thing is, I don't say, Quilombo, for example. Where is it? Quilombo, for example. This is Angola, from Angola word. It means a secret society. It traveled all the way across the ocean to come to the Americas. And especially in Brazil, you find it. And so what we should say is that what I got up to say, I'm sorry, my sister, I'm sorry, everybody. What I got up to say is I think the Maroon story got lost, although that's what you were pushing earlier. The Maroon story, the fact that prisoners who were like the brother, maybe didn't have the opportunity, the circumstance to run. When they find him running, they named him, they labeled his running with the idea of Maroons. That's progressive, that's powerful, that's revolutionary for me. That's why I got up to speak. Thank you very much. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to hear conclusion part, we'll extend the time. If you want them to make a concluding remark, Paul, take it over.
I just want to hear from your young protege sister here.
The young freshman from Howard give us a hard time.